Mr. Chair.
Kevin
Mr.
Haig.
Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Shortcuts taken in the health and safety area. Mr. Chair, the terms of reference that were set for the Royal Commission, and I give the government credit for this as well as for implementing these recommendations today. The terms of reference set for the Royal Commission were broad. They were broad enough for the Royal Commission to look beyond the immediate in-the-mine causes of the explosion. And that was very important. The Royal Commission heard from an expert in human factors involved in disasters, in fact specialising in aircraft crashes, Dr. Kathleen Callaghan. And Dr. Callaghan gave evidence about the importance of upstream factors, what we might think of as the causes of the causes. And what she said was that while, of course, it's possible to reflect on the immediate in-the-mine causes of the explosion, a much greater effective set of recommendations emerges by going further and further upstream to identify the causal factors and environments that enable those risk conditions to develop. And that's what the Commission of Inquiry did. Dr. Callaghan referred to James Reason's Swiss cheese model, and if I get another call, Mr. Chair, I'll talk a little bit more about that because it's very important in the context of this bill. She referred to the particular risk of process risk incidents. Now, process risks are ones that are very low frequency, so they don't get picked up by regular incident monitoring, but have high consequences. And the type of explosion, coal dust or gas explosion that can occur in a mine is precisely that kind of thing. That's why, she said, you need to get the regulatory framework right. The Royal Commission identified the failings in precisely those upstream factors, in the regulations that applied to the coal mining industry and in the inspectorate that was holding the Pike River mine to account in meeting its obligations under those regulations. And in particular, sir, the regulations included this test that's right in the heart of the Health and Safety and Employment Act of practicability. Now, practicability is all well and good for actually the example I used to give of a company that was very, very well resourced and able to implement all of the health and safety requirements was Solid Energy. But let's say a notional coal mining company that is very well resourced would be able to implement all of the health and safety requirements. But a company that is cash-strapped, that says we cannot afford to build a proper second exit, actually finds that to be not practicable and is able to get away with that under the regulations that applied in that mine on that day. So that was one of the fundamental issues. And we heard too about the mine's inspectors. There were, at the time of the disaster, 2 mines inspectors trying to inspect every mine and quarry, in fact, in New Zealand. Now, that was an unmanageable workload. The Royal Commission heard from those inspectors that they had inadequate training. They had no training, for example, Mr. Chair, in systems approaches. They frequently appealed to their bosses in the Department of Labour for more resources, for more access to training, for more access to systems that would enable them to do their job, and they were turned down. So, Mr. Chair, what we heard about was a complete failure of the regulatory framework and of the inspection framework. So where does that come from, Mr. Chair? Well, those failings found their origin in the Health and Safety and Employment Act in 1992. And what that act did was it moved from prescriptive standards for health and safety to an approach that placed the onus on employers. And why that was disastrous was the government of the day completely failed to see that actually employers had incentives to cut corners, financial incentives. If they could reduce their costs by not doing something and no one would pick it up, that's what they would do. That's actually how economic theory works, market theory, that actually That's exactly the outcome that we would expect. And so, Mr. Chair,
I call the honourable member Gareth Hughes.
Kia ora, Mr. Chair. Ngā mihi nui